Hi everyone, I'm Stan Mallow. Welcome to Paranormal Yakker. My guest on today's show is Erik Lovin. I'll be speaking with him about his book, UFOs and Spaceships of the Gods, You and Your Soul's Guide to Earth. Erik Lovin, welcome to Paranormal Yakker.
Thank you. Thank you for accepting me on your podcast.
What, Erik, is the main theme of your book? Is there a backstory as to the reason you wrote it? And what do you hope readers take away with them after they've read it?
When I was young, like in my teens, I was looking up at the stars. I lived in the country, I had no light pollution. Looking at all the stars at night, and I was thinking, is this all there is? There's got to be something else to reality. Why are we here? As I got older and older, thinking it doesn't make sense what the main media is saying. There's got to be more to this, especially when you consider all the UFOs that we see around the world lately. And so I started to get very interested when I read this book called Mahatma, The I Am Presence by Brian Grattan. So I read that. It was as far back as 1995 or something when that book came out. And I read that book every year, parts of it, and it just makes more sense as we go on and on. It even talks about in that book the Great Awakening coming and our first contact, which is scheduled for 2028, possibly as early as 2027. So that would be like the background on why I started writing about the book. However, let me expand on that. The UFO part wasn't my main topic. It was more about our the consciousness. Where did the universe come from? Why are we here? Those were the questions I was asking. And I think I made a mistake in my book when I started the first 80 pages of my book were about the spiritual aspect, our consciousness, God, and all those things without being religious. Later on in the book, I bring up the ancient artwork and things that we see around the world and the UFO sightings, etc.
Your book contains a myriad of esoteric subjects, challenges established thinking about them, and in many cases, you write that much of what we thought to be correct is not, it's wrong. Where, Erik, did you get the information that contradicts long established theories held about these topics?
I started in 1995 with that book, The I Am Presence by Brian Grattan, and I joined a transcendental group that same year. And while meditating and thinking about the topics in that book, that's where everything started for me to be on this path. I call it the evolution of consciousness, not just for me, but for mankind. In order to make sense of all that, we have to include the UFO sightings, the grays that were in Area 51, and all these other parts, bring them together and try to make sense of it.
The Earth has had many prior civilizations, including the well-known Lemuria and Atlantis. You say, Erik, that these civilizations are kept in crystals by the planetary hierarchy in Shambhala, located in the upper Gobi Desert. Do you know the exact location? And is it possible for us Earthlings to access them?
I only know from what I've read in the Shambhala desert, the crystals are there. But when you look at the movie Superman, and he's got those crystal caves in mountains where there's ice covered and all that, you can't really disregard movies. Sometimes the science fiction movies have a lot of truth behind them.
What, Erik, is the soul? How did it come to be? And how would you suggest one go about learning what their soul purpose in this lifetime? What is it?
My understanding of soul is that It's our center. We are consciousness. Consciousness comes from our soul. We are not the body that is going to die and go back into dust. We are the soul, the consciousness. When we pass, there's a silver light that we travel back to our soul. And at that time, we can reincarnate to another life, reincarnate to another world, another planet, even to another universe. When you start thinking about aliens, there are aliens that are our brothers. We share DNA between these groups, such as the Anunnaki, the Atlanteans, the Palladians, the Sumerians, etc. They're probably our brotherhood, and that's my idea. Is that not only my idea? I mean, it's all over media like TikTok, where people are talking about spaceships on Earth from these planets are monitoring our evolution of consciousness. They're thinking that we're ready to ascend to another level of consciousness. So some of these UFOs are here on Earth for that purpose, waiting for us to graduate from this lower third dimensional mindset. Now, the other part of the aliens, like the one behind you, that gray alien with the big head and the big eyes, we would call them the reptilian race. So they don't have a soul. They have evolved much the same way as animals have evolved. This is what I'm thinking, and it's not the total truth. No one really knows. But when they crashed in Roswell in 1947 and the U.S. captured two of them alive, two of them were autopsied by a doctor, and that was all kept hush hush. And all they said, the government hid that away, and nobody was allowed, not even the government was allowed to know about it. There were some presidents that knew a little bit of the knowledge, but they were always told, don't say anything, don't say anything. And the reason for that is unbelievable. They don't want the people to be hysterical that the Bible is not correct. It's for a religious reason. Same thing with all of these artifacts or stone monuments, such as the pyramids. They always say it's never more than 5,000 years old because it would go against the Bible, thinking that another civilization existed before our civilization. That would be like you can throw the Bible out then. It's not true.
Is the Terminator movie, Erik, similar to the reptilian agenda?
I mentioned that in my book, that Terminator movie is kind of parallel the reptilian gray agenda because they are jealous or they are curious. Why do humans have a soul? How can they reincarnate? Apparently, they are unable to reproduce, and as they are getting fewer and fewer of these alien reptiles, whatever, they're looking at humans. How can we reincarnate like the humans? If it's true that these airplanes and ships that have been hijacked, wonder if the reptilian greys are experimenting with humans to find out what makes them have a soul. Why can they reproduce and reincarnate? That would be like, can make all kinds of science fiction movies out of that.
Talking about science fiction movies and also related to something you just said about the pyramids, this is a follow-up to that. Was Star Trek technology used to make the pyramids?
The Star Trek technology must have been used by the Anunnaki, and later on, the Anunnaki became the Atlanteans. When their continent sank, then they went to Atlantis. Now, the Star Trek technology that we're missing is the levitation, for instance, the force field, the teleportation. All those powers or forces, whatever you call them, probably were used to make the pyramids and all these other structures around the world, because there's no way that people with copper and bronze tools could have made all these monuments and pyramids, hundreds of thousands of them around the world.
How, Erik, are the Greys linked to missing flights, such as the disappearance of Malaysia Flight 370 over the Indian Ocean in 2014.
That ties into the conspiracy theory about the Greys. Now, if they are actually needing more humans to experiment with or even to get information from, then it looks like that flight MN 370 from Malaysia, that's our latest aircraft that has gone missing, totally missing for a year or more before they even found a little wreckage of it. They made a Netflix documentary about that 2 years ago. And what they probably didn't include in that documentary was the internet footage, what do you call that, from space. They got a hold of the data of the airplane flying, and they noticed that there's 3 lights hovering around the aircraft. Nobody knew what that meant, so they ignored it. But if those 3 lights were alien spaceships, and they teleported the humans out of the plane, and then they crashed the plane, and we would not know anything, no difference. To us, it would be like the plane just ran out of fuel. That's not possible the way it flew around, and they had no contact with communications. It just disappeared.
Did the Anunnaki arrive on our planet to mine gold? And did they give their DNA to humans?
I personally don't know. I didn't hear about that until I was writing the book and reading up on Anunnaki history. And that's what they said, that their planet Nibiru was dying. And the only way to save that planet was to seed the atmosphere with gold dust. And they traveled through Earth to find gold. And they found that the mining, it was too difficult, too much time-consuming work for them. So they enlisted the native population to help them. But in order to help them, they had to change their DNA to become more human, or they weren't exactly human, they were more animal man. The Anunnaki then gave animal man its human qualities. That's what happened as far as I can tell. That's what I wrote in my book.
There has been much buzz in the UFO community that the Galactic Federation will make contact with Earth in 2028. In that regard, there are those who say all kinds of wonderful things will happen, and others who say the aliens will either dominate or completely eliminate us. What is your take on the matter?
Oh, that's a good question. Very deep question. That's the problem where humanity is still fear-based. We're fighting wars. We're just not in a place where we can take in that new energy and understand it. People will be hysterical. That's why it was like a 40-year window. I read that in that book, Mahatma, the I Am Presence. Way back in 94, it was a 40-year window for us to be evolved in our consciousness so that we would actually know who we are, we would know where we came from and what we are. Most of humanity doesn't know that. They don't know that we reincarnate. People think you die, that's it. They don't know we have a soul that allows us to travel anywhere. When after you pass, you don't have to be reincarnate to Earth. You can stay in the spirit world, or you can travel to another country. So your original question was, what will happen when the first contact is made? That's going to be very interesting to see how people react. And I'm hoping that they will, maybe if they follow my book, it would help them.
Should viewers of Paranormal Yakker want to buy UFOs and Spaceships of the Gods, how, Erik, can they do that?
Well, currently it's only on sale on Amazon.
Erik Lovin, I thank you for being my guest on Paranormal Yakker. Yakking with you has been most informative. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for having me. Take care.
Hi, everyone. This is Stan Mallow, the Paranormal Yakker. I hope you enjoyed the interview you just watched. So that you don't miss any upcoming shows, be sure to subscribe to my free YouTube channel. To do that, just press the subscribe button on your screen.